Hello and welcome to the 9th episode of the 7 Minutes podcast.
Wow.
A podcast about video games, often dealing disproportionately with the 90s and or Nintendo, but ostensibly talking about the wide range of video games. I am one of your three hosts, Zack. On my right and left are two other people.
On the left is I, Robert.
And on the right is I, Angela.
Yeah, that's right.
The dynamic trio.
Brother, sister, and some other guy. This episode, we are going to be talking about multiplayer gaming, competitive and cooperative. But first, we are going to ask that eternal question, what you been playing?
Well, I have a few things to discuss here. First of all, last night, I got very close to beating Super Double Dragon. Very close. I died.
Is that a Super Nintendo game?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I've ever played it, actually.
It feels surprisingly like the NES Double Dragons. It's, on the slow side in terms of movement speed. Very simplistic with the fighting mechanics. But I don't know if it's just because I grew up playing Double Dragon, particularly the Game Boy Double Dragon, Double Dragon 3 specifically. But I like the pace of those games and the feel of the simple combat. So slipping into the Super Double Dragon game felt natural to me, and I enjoyed it.
Were you playing as Bimmy or Jimmy?
The blue one.
I don't know which one that is.
Neither do I. It was pretty good. I should look up when. I got the impression it was probably an early Super Nintendo game, because the sprite work felt a little on the simple side, and it felt like it was not quite up to snuff compared to later Super Nintendo games.
I don't know how early a game it is, but it is definitely, it does have that look.
So, what else have I played? I've been getting in a little teeny bit of time with Rise. My girlfriend has become obsessed with Tai 2, so I've played a little bit of Tai 2 to just appease her.
Sorry, what is Tai 2?
Tai the Tasmanian Tiger, I think is the name.
That is a game choice I would expect from somebody who is big into
Spyro the Dragon.
Spyro the Dragon.
Yeah,
that's right. I keep trying to give it a Greek pronunciation.
Yeah.
Like Spiro Agnew.
Yeah, he's not a Euro. Is that what you call those things?
Euro, yeah.
Spiro the Euro. So those are the game things I've been playing, but on a game-adjacent note, I would like to point out that I read the Satoru Iwata book, Ask Iwata. Read it all. Finished it this past week, I forget when, but that was very good, and I wrote the review on Nintendojo.com. In summary, it's short, but it offers some insight into Iwata that I thought was intriguing, because I feel like not all game developers, I think, especially anyone that is over in North America or Europe, we probably hear more because the language barrier is lessened, because they're tweeting in English or posting in English or doing interviews or whatever. But I feel like some Japanese developers I don't know as much about, but particularly like Nintendo's. So it was kind of cool because, you see Miyamoto and Iwata, you would see them in like Nintendo Directs or whatever. And I have a sense of what their personalities are kind of like from that, or just the random interviews they've given over the years. But Ask Iwata is almost entirely written by Iwata. It's from his Iwata Asks columns. So Hobonichi, which is run by, say his name for me, Zack. Shigesato Itoi?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's about right.
Well, we shall refer to him as the Earthbound guy, because that's who he was, or that's who he is. His company took a bunch of Iwata Asks columns, sifted through them, picked out pieces that they thought were really good, just examples of who Iwata was and what he cared about. It also gave a little bit of bio on him, like how he became a game designer. And then also we got some insight from Miyamoto and Itoi about Iwata. But in reading all of it, you got a little bit more personal information about all of them. So like Iwata and Miyamoto would frequently have lunch together, and it would be in kind of the same place near the office. And the anecdote about Iwata going to Itoi and helping with Earthbound is great. He tells him, so it's taken 4 years for development. if I come in and help you, we can either get it done in 2 years, or we can start over completely and get it done in half a year, but you let me know what you want to do. And they were all just like, yeah, we'll do the half year. But it was a really good book. I think that it, is it safe? Sure, we're not going to get the evil side of Iwata. But, excuse me, I get the sense that Iwata was a genuinely nice guy. And I was glad to have read it because, you get the sense of it. And then reading his own words, translated though they may have been, I got even more of a sense of this seems like a nice guy. So that was a worthwhile read. I could talk about it the whole show. But anyway, so that's what I have been doing.
I've been deep into Final Fantasy XIV. I don't know why. I don't really have any interest in playing the game alone. I've only been playing it with Zack. I just think it's more interesting and more fun that way. And
I get to be your pocket healer.
Yeah. And in fact, I guess we can elaborate more on that in today's episode. Actually, it's pretty topical. But yeah, so I've been doing that, becoming a ninja. Really, my greatest motivation right now is not looking stupid, because my I guess leveling gear, if you want to call it that, is just trash. I just kind of look like a Liberace inspired pirate right now. But
you've looked worse.
I have looked worse. It's true. But that's what I've been doing. Playing a lot of that.
And I have also been playing a lot of Final Fantasy XIV, trying out different things, because I do play more than the time that Angie and I play together, all over the map in terms of that. I haven't been doing that much new that I haven't already discussed on previous podcasts. I'm not going to dwell on it. The one other thing that I have played, aside from Final Fantasy XIV since the last recording, has been a game called Hellpoint, which is a Souls-inspired game from an indie studio. I actually can't remember the developer's name, but last year there were two notable indie Souls-likes that came out. Mortal Shell, which I played over the summer when it came out, and Hellpoint. Hellpoint, I was less interested in because it's got kind of a sci-fi angle. It's kind of like Doom or Event Horizon, where it's like a space station that is overrun by demonic forces. That's the setting for it. And I'm just not as interested in that as I am in the kind of the deep forests, foreboding mists, strange obelisks, dark fantasy stuff that's going on in Mortal Shell. I've only played about half an hour to an hour of Hellpoint so far, and it hasn't grabbed me. It doesn't really have much to distinguish it from other Souls-like games I've played. I haven't written it off yet, but so far it would not be super high on my list of Souls-type games. But perhaps more on that in a future episode.
Okie-dokie.
Yeah. Like I mentioned at the outset, our topic for today is multiplayer gaming. This might be kind of a fractured conversation because, as came up during the arcades episode, the Wonder Twins both tend more towards competitive gaming. And Robert especially hates co-op, as he said.
Maybe.
He can't stand playing with people with different skill levels.
You guys suck.
And
I'm not a big fan of it either. So.
And for my part, I don't really like competitive gaming very much. That's not across the board true. I've spent a lot of time playing Street Fighter that I like, and there are other examples of party games and stuff. But I'm much less into competitive versus co-op. So this could be, like I said, a slightly fractured conversation, but I think that's okay, right? We're different people. We bring very different perspectives. So yeah, just to start, I do have some experience with competitive games, but I'm probably not the right person to speak on competitive games generally outside of the realm of Street Fighter, which is the only thing I've played super intensively in a head-to-head context.
Well, for myself, so most of my multiplayer gaming, I guess, is competitive. We're not really playing games together, whether it was Angie and I or our cousins. So, the cousins on my dad's side, so shout out, Dominic and Stephanie. Dom and Steph are who would come over and play with Angie and I. And so I think it's kind of funny because I think that the games we played the most all together were Smash Bros. And Mario Kart.
Mario Party.
Mario Party as well. But Smash and Mario Kart stand out even more in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But what I like is that there's this kind of interesting distilling of skill. Because just, I don't know, I guess by default, I'm the oldest, so I'd be the best in terms of skill with all four of us. So it's like, Angie would play with me, and at first I'd go easy on her, because she'd get angry in Mario Kart if I threw items at her.
Admittedly, I don't remember this, so
She's absolved of sin.
She'd get hit by a red shell and be like, that's cheating.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, she wouldn't say it was cheating, but it would tick her off. And so I didn't want her to be angry. So what I would do is playing Mario Kart, I'd have to figure out how am I going to get around her without using items.
Run me off the road.
Which I think in turn helped me with my skills. But regardless, so what happened is that I'm building my skills. Angie gets older, starts getting better because I'm no longer holding back. So she's getting stronger, training under me. And then along comes Dom, and Dom's getting it from the both of us. And Dom loves games as much as Angie and I do. So Dom, the three of us are like this trinity of skill level in all these games. Like especially Smash, like to this day, we will play. It's always highly competitive. And I think of the three of us, Dom absolutely wants to win the most.
Yeah.
He doesn't get mad. Like, he's not mad at us. It's just pure competition for him. He's like, I want to win. But I love seeing all of us play because there's that amount of skill that's been developed from not necessarily generation, but like, from the oldest to the youngest to the youngest. Steph is there. She competes, but she's not quite the gamer that we all are.
Yeah, you all seem like you can get fairly heated in competition. I think Steph less than the rest of you, but
yeah, Steph will get. I've definitely heard and seen her get frustrated in Mario Kart. She's competitive in her own right.
I think in a previous episode, I kind of lamented. I said it was kind of sad that you guys didn't really do a lot of co-op gaming. Mm-hmm. But this is actually something that's really cool that I don't have the experience of. I do have the experiences of playing like Street Fighter in particular, 1v1 with my friend Jeremy or other people. Super Dodgeball on the NES. I remember playing a lot of that competitively, but I didn't have really like a regular crew of people to like get together with and play anything like Mario Kart or Smash Bros with any kind of the regularity that you two do.
Yeah.
And it seems cool because there have definitely been games that have come out in recent years that I thought that seems like it'd be fun, but only if I had people to play it with, like Duck Game or Samurai Gun would both be examples of games I never really got into. I watched people play online, but what am I going to do?
Yeah. For me, even Home Alone, I'm really big on Mario Kart 8 online. And at the times that I tend to play, which is pretty late at night, I play with the worldwide. You can either do like local play or global play, and so I'll do global. And I tend to constantly be matched with Japanese players just because of the time differential. And both because of the severe lag between like the US servers and the Japanese servers, and also the just incredibly competitive nature of the Japanese players. It is so aggressive and it is just so competitive, and I will find myself just angry and just
at a sea of Waluigis.
Yes, a sea of Waluigis riding the Wiggler with whatever tires it is, because there's like a particular combo. There's a particular racer kart combo that is considered the best statistically. And I've noticed that the Japanese players seem to be the ones most concerned with winning and doing it with the best kart racer combo, compared to when I'm playing during the day and I'm matched with more Americans or more Europeans, a fair amount of Mexicans as well. We all just seem to kind of be more interested in just, this is my character.
Pure aesthetic.
Yeah. So it's an interesting experience. It can be really frustrating, but I also feel like it's actually a good experience playing in a lobby where you're one of, if not the only non-Japanese player, because it really ups your skill even if it makes you incredibly angry in the process.
Most of the online gaming that both of you do is with Nintendo games, right? So there's not really the element of voice chat.
No.
But you do have experience with Call of Duty, right?
So I didn't know I was as competitive as I could be until Call of Duty. Like, I played some sports as a kid, like elementary school. I remember like playing basketball. But by the time like late elementary school came around and into middle school and even high school, like I didn't play any sports. If I did multiplayer gaming, it was with my cousins. And like, you know, you want to win, but like it really was not a concern for me. Like, it was more just like we're all playing. But not until I started playing Call of Duty. Then I was like, oh, I want to win badly. So I didn't have even a flat screen TV until years after they became common. But in where I live, you know, I had internet connection eventually, but I went for the longest time with no internet, no flat screen TV. It took forever before I finally got like an Xbox. So I had gotten an Xbox from my friend Phil. Phil worked at a GameStop, and I'm not sure if it was Phil by himself or Phil and my friend Justin and maybe another person got together. They got me the red Xbox 360 from Resident Evil 5. And it was pre-owned. Phil showed up at night, had it in a box, and was just like, we want you to play with us. We're giving you this. So I was like, oh, okay. Jeez. So I got everything going in terms of having that and internet, everything connected, Xbox Live, started playing Call of Duty. So I came in, I'm pretty sure Modern Warfare 2 had been moved on from at that point. And now I'm blanking a little on what came after Modern Warfare. Was that the first Black Ops after that?
I am not the right person to ask.
Man, I'm blanking. I just remember my heyday for Call of Duty was Black Ops. And man, once you start playing people, it is absolutely something else. I think, if I'm remembering right, I should know, I just read it. I believe Iwata talked about this a little bit, the idea of how playing the computer is fun, but once you start playing people, nothing beats that.
It's true.
And man, that was my first experience with other people truly being in this competitive environment, and I was so hooked. And for at least a few years, it was probably a span of maybe 4 or 5 years where part of my just ritual of playing at night would be to get on to Call of Duty. It was just this amazing feeling. Like, I think because, you know, for those who are younger, you know, you live in a world where you've probably spent your whole life with online gaming and stuff like Call of Duty, or probably, especially now, Overwatch. What's the other one that everybody loves? Fortnite. But Call of Duty was fairly unique. Now, before that, you had, I guess in terms of like a little history lesson here, you had stuff like Super Dodgeball, like Zack was talking about. Bomberman was huge for multiplayer with people for a while. But I think the true kind of origin point for what we're used to with shooting as a multiplayer game is GoldenEye. And GoldenEye's multiplayer, which is legendary, where people are playing on one screen and it's first-person shooting. GoldenEye leads you to Halo. And Halo had its own competitive scene of people playing online, and that's when you really start getting online and people are going at it. But when Call of Duty comes along, and you get the competitive play with that, it was so incredibly well done. And you can say whatever you want about, oh, this game was better, that game was better, it's not as good now, whatever. There's a reason people get hooked on Call of Duty. It's incredibly fun. And that kind of flashpoint of experiencing it for the first time as it was happening was really interesting. You know, it's like you're playing people different parts of the country, different parts of the world, and like for me, learning, whoa, I have this competitive side to myself I didn't know existed. That was super fun.
I used to just laugh when because I never wanted a headset, never had any desire to talk to people. But I would sit in the lobby when I would play Black Ops 2 and just hearing people talking shit to each other. It could just get so funny. And you know, like you'd just hear the other people that were just sitting there waiting for the match to start, and they'd be laughing. You'd get someone who they had their mic on, for some reason they're blasting music, and then someone starts talking crap about their music, and then it just sets off this chain reaction. Oh my God, it would just be so funny. I mean, that was one of the biggest draws for me, was you never knew what you were going to get. You might get a lobby where nobody talks. You might get a lobby where there's someone who's just they have not muted themselves, and so you just get noise. But then sometimes you get the people who, like, part of the attraction is hearing them argue with one another.
It's a sideshow.
Yeah.
From my point of view, the like the origin point of like online gaming and like the Call of Duty style, speaking as someone who's a little older and I think was already kind of in college at this time, was Quake and Quake 2.
Oh yeah, you can't discount that. I'm forgetting that.
Which was like super popular my freshman year. I had a roommate and other people on the floor who were really into playing Quake. I was never my thing. You know, I like, to the extent I was playing on the computer, I was more interested in emulators at the time. Yeah, from my point of view, I do feel like Halo ended up being kind of the inheritor of both GoldenEye and Quake, like together in terms of like culturally, like bringing that online frag culture to the consoles.
Well, it's fascinating to think about it's like what we've mentioned before in the podcast, like the difference between like with Zack, where Zack's been online for way longer. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's not even just about age. Like there were people I knew who were in my age bracket. It's not that much farther back from Zack, but people my age who were online already from an earlier point than I was. But I guess what makes that 360 era with Halo and Call of Duty particularly special is the true kind of transition into the mainstream. Because, you know, I think that there is, by technology and different factors, the Quake crowd is probably nowhere near as large as what that Halo and then Call of Duty crowd became.
Right.
And then, I mean, really, Halo and Call of Duty are what led to the esport revolution. Part of that is it just, was it the console? Was it the ease of use? Because, you know, people could figure out how to get online as far back as Quake. But with 360, it just felt so easy and intuitive to just, you do this, and you're online. And then you're playing with people. And that seamlessness really helped. You know, there have been different pieces of technology that have popped up here and there that have failed at certain times. And then you think, well, if that had appeared maybe 10 years later, it might have had a better shot. So like something like Quake, it's not like it failed, obviously, but just the idea that didn't catch on in the way that Halo caught on. And it's fascinating looking at the differences and the reasons why.
Yeah, it's always been the case that PC gaming has required more financial outlay. Often, like, PC games are cheaper, but you have to buy the machine first. Yeah. And you're also, like, it requires a whole other setup. Normally, you need to have, like, a desk or whatever where you know, they give you this whole setup. Being able to just, like, buy a console and plug it into your TV widens it up to a much wider audience of people. So, yeah, I mean, it makes total sense that in the scheme of things, Halo was the one, not Quake, of course. Halo is the one that had like the crazy midnight launch parties and became this cultural mainstay. And then Call of Duty kind of takes over from that in terms of like the zeitgeist, right?
Not to harp on Iwata, but he's in my brain, so I'm sure I'll mention him throughout the episode. But he was talking in the book about the idea of how a lot of family households, it was one television. But then as time went by and game consoles became more prevalent, he said that there is a statistical connection between people having more than one TV in the house and the adoption of the game console. But the PC, definitely separate. You know, it's like the financial investment, and then also it's like you're not using the TV screen. You have that monitor you have to buy. So all of those things that you buy, set up, and then you're separate. Whereas with the game console, it's different, you know. I mean, nowadays, I think, you know, there's a lot of homes that probably still have one television, but I think most homes nowadays probably have at least two, and the kid's going to have one in his room and probably plays his games there. But
do your folks just have the one?
In their house, they technically do. Yeah. There's one upstairs that never gets turned on.
Oh, all right.
But yeah, it's always historically been just the one.
Yeah, our
TV
house was the one TV
in the front room.
Iwata talked about when the Wii came out, how there were a couple of interesting things with Wii. For one thing, that console, he was insistent on it had to be called a remote. You couldn't call it a controller. That's why it's the Wii remote. Miyamoto was even saying it too, because Iwata's talking about it and he's like, I don't know why, but I was insistent it had to be a remote. And Miyamoto saying, Iwata was like, it has to be called a remote, because Nintendo was thinking at the time, everybody's adopting these flat screen TVs, and now people have one TV again because most people didn't have multiple of the flat panels.
Interesting.
And so they were like, so if there's one big TV, we can get this system going that broadens the audience, which apparently is Nintendo's whole thing. They want to perpetually broaden who's playing.
They call it the blue ocean strategy, right?
Yep, that's what he referred to it as. Although they called it something else. He calls it something else, and he said that in normal business, it's called the blue ocean strategy. And he talked about, we want it to be called a remote because with the game console, the idea was get it to the point where people instinctively turn that thing on the way that they turn a television on when they come home. And so we had like those apps built in, like the weather and a couple other things. And the idea was we call it a remote. You think of it as a remote, you come in, you turn it on. But also the social nature of it.
That's also why they call them channels, right?
Yep, that's right. And then you had Wii Sports, and we all know how that went in terms of... So that's another one where, I guess it's still competitive, but man, that's another thing that brought all of us together as a family, was playing Wii Sports with our cousins. The bowling.
Oh, yeah.
Tennis.
Yeah, whenever I think of Wii Sports, I think of our cousin Steph. She really got a lot of enjoyment out of doing this ridiculous, exaggerated swing upwards during Wii bowling. God, it was like her full body, like a total Elaine Benes, like full body upward motion, dramatic throwing of the head back, and I laugh every single time I think of Steph doing that. But yeah, actually one thing I was thinking about while we were sitting here talking was, a lot of women will talk about when they play games, especially competitively online, they can have a bad experience. And a lot of it is just kind of being targeted for being a woman. And I am the type of person who is extremely hesitant to ever attribute someone's behavior towards me as being driven by me being a woman. I will not accuse someone of that unless I feel like it's really, really, I really feel like it's true. But I will say that playing games competitively online, I have had some interesting experiences if it was obvious I was a woman versus if it was not. And I tend to, like, the handles or the nicknames or the usernames that I use tend to be based off of, like, game characters or whatever that are either male or not even human. So
monstrous.
Yeah. So it's not obvious for the most part, really ever, that I'm a woman and not a man. But with Mario Kart, it is obvious because my me is me. Even though my name is not my name, but my me is my me and it looks like me. And so I have noticed a difference in treatment and especially a very different level of aggression in Mario Kart. Like, I've had people who it was really obvious someone was going out of their way to be an asshole. And and especially too, because obviously it's an aggressive game. Everybody's trying to win. Part of the game is throwing items and being a jerk and messing up, someone's role. But it would be really obvious a lot of the times when someone was doing something to be especially aggressive and to go out of their way to do it.
From what I remember, because obviously you've talked to me about this stuff before, and I think it's also come up in your descriptions of playing Smash online, that it's been less like sexual harassment kind of attention, and it seemed to be more people getting a little bit tilted because they were getting beaten by a girl. Yeah,
that is definitely what it seemed to be. And especially in the case of Mario, it's like, there's no photo, there's no nothing, there's no voice chat. It's just my me, which is cartoony and, whatever. So yeah, it did seem more like that was the issue. For Smash, it's different though, because, there's no me. My name is not my actual name. I play as Link. I'm not even playing as a female character. I main Link. And so times people have gotten really aggressive has been when I've been winning. And this one fight sticks out in my mind. I was playing, it was group Smash. I prefer the group melee to one-on-ones.
Like a 4-person free-for-all.
4-person free-for-all, or even if it's 3-person because the 4th slot didn't fill for whatever reason. So it was a group of 4, and we're all just going at each other. And this dude was playing Mario. I don't know what his trip was. I don't know why he honed in on me. But he did seem to have a chip on his shoulder. And again, no way he could have known I was a woman. So it wasn't that.
Yeah.
I think he just didn't like that I was doing well. And then it came down to a sudden death match between me and him, whatever. And so, in Ultimate, the flames start closing in on the screen. You have a limited time to do this sudden death match. And so he thought he was slick. He did I don't even remember what he did initially. And then he tried to turn me around using Mario's cape, but he was just short because Mario's got the stubby little arms. Mm-hmm. It's just so funny because he misses, and it was just so perfectly timed. We basically each took a swing at each other, but he swings Mario's cape, misses. It's like right in front of Link's nose. And I did the jumping, leaping slash, knocked him out. And he quit. He did not stay in the lobby. He was so mad. But I got a lot of satisfaction out of that. But it has been interesting seeing that difference in treatment. If it has been obvious I was a woman. This is why when I play Call of Duty, again, my username was not my name. It wasn't anything feminine. And I did not have a mic. No way.
Well, I think one of the fascinating aspects of online gaming, which, there's multiplayer gaming without it, but specifically online, is getting to see the psyche of people in certain ways. Because if you're playing somebody in the arcade, right? Like maybe we're playing Street Fighter together. Mm-hmm. There's a level of interaction there, but like you're less likely to say something horrendous or punch somebody in the face.
Death threats.
But if you're playing online, man, it's just no inhibitions. Mm-mm. Some people are doing stuff just to be jerks.
Oh, yeah.
I think half of the evil, various isms and phobic behaviors that appear, part of it is just the madness of being anonymous. But beyond that, the way people play. Mm-hmm. I think one of my favorite things when playing Call of Duty back in the day is when you just really beat the crap out of somebody or you do something that's brilliantly clever and the other person messages you and just is like, that was really good.
Yeah. Or they invite you to play with them.
Oh, that never happens.
Yeah.
It happens, but I don't do it.
No. I'm just saying that when you would get the invite and you knew you were getting the invite because you were
one time this guy I was playing, he was crouched down kind of camping. I can't remember what map it was, but he was pissing me off. I couldn't get him, couldn't grenade him, couldn't shoot him. And so I had the tomahawk. This had to have been Black Ops. And man, I did this miracle throw that hit him right in the face. And I think it ended up being the final kill cam, too. And that guy, it was super funny. He messaged me and was just like, that was really good. So that's a fun example. And then you get the opposite, which is somebody's doing some ridiculous bullshit and is incredibly annoying. Mm-hmm. Again, Call of Duty, it was a winter map, snow, and there's this large tower. And this moron was obsessed with the tower. So I kept periodically passing it, getting picked off by him. And I was like, what is going on? So then I figured out what he was doing. He's camping the tower. But this guy was obsessively camping it. So I counter-camped him. Counter-camping's so wonderful. Because it's like you get a taste of your own medicine, homie. So I kept going. And he somehow couldn't figure out how I would get to him. And so I think 7 or 8 times in a row, I killed him. He would come back to the tower. I would slightly reposition. He wouldn't find me, and then I'd slaughter him. Oh.
I used to laugh when you'd come upon a camper, and they would have fortified their area, just like landmines and motion detecting bombs and just everything. And you'd throw like one grenade or one flash bomb or something, and it would just set it all off. And you take them out, and it was just so. It's almost pathetic because they have this whole setup and just what you come in, take him out. I used to laugh watching Robert play when he'd hit people with the tomahawk because it was this heavy thud. Yeah, and it was just, it was
Is that the origin of doof?
Maybe it is.
It was such an
Inside Joker.
Yeah, it's such an anticlimactic, almost offensive way to kill someone because it was just like I can't even be bothered to like pull out an explosive.
You're not worth a bullet.
Yeah, you're not worth a bullet. I'm just gonna doof you right in the face.
Incredibly satisfying, man. Like it makes me want to play right now.
Yeah.
That tomahawk was so fun to just lob at people. And
I just distinctly remember watching Robert a lot and sitting and laughing my ass off watching him play.
you know, I had an interesting. Now here's another thing that just the wonders of technology, right? So I am a straight male. I had a friend of a friend. Guess it doesn't matter if I name him. He doesn't care. Well, no, I shouldn't name him. That's his business. I had a friend of a friend. I'm not going to name him. This person was gay. Very nice guy. And we only really knew each other through Call of Duty. We met one time at my job. And then after that, we were just buddies online. But this friend has a very effeminate voice. And I just remember after playing with him multiple times, I was like, you know, I really like this person. And if they're a woman, I'd want to go out with them. Because the personality, everything was there. I just, I'm not gay. But it was a funny growth, you know, of meeting and knowing this person. And it's like, I only know him through voice. And then you have the reverse, which is hearing someone's voice and thinking, oh, she sounds nice. And then you maybe end up seeing them and you're like, oh, well, never mind.
You know, Robert, you said something earlier about seeing the true nature of people online.
Oh, yes.
And like as I alluded to earlier, I have not really spent much time playing like competitive multiplayer games. But even in the course of playing Final Fantasy XIV, which is like far and away the online game I've spent the most time on, I've subscribed and unsubscribed at different points over the years. And I jumped on originally when A Realm Reborn came out, which was like the big relaunch back in 2013, which was kind of rushed. They had to get the content out there. There's a fair bit of padding. And when you get to the level cap, when you get to the end game, there wasn't much to do when it came out. And I remember really distinctly people got impatient. And they weren't like throwing slurs at each other, but they were getting like really short with each other. Everyone was like, I need to run this dungeon 10 times to get my tombstones so I can get my gear so I can do the raid. And like everyone was just like super short, super impatient, just like everyone was an asshole because there just wasn't that much to do. And they all understood their incentives of I need to do X, then Y, then Z, then et cetera, et cetera. And I kind of got turned off of the game partly for that reason. And I came back a couple years later when the first expansion came out. And in the time since, there's just been more added to do. This is something that like Final Fantasy XIV gets referred to this way, and World of Warcraft also gets referred to this way as like a quote, a theme park MMO. Like the idea is there's just so much to do. No one is expected to do all of it. There's just a bunch of different options. But there wasn't actually that much to do when Realm Reborn came out in 2013. By the time Heavensward came out, that wasn't true. And one of the things I noticed when I came back to the game is the incentives had changed because there was just more to do. People were more patient across the board. People are nicer in the game now than they used to be.
Well, I mean, when we were just playing, I think it was last night.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mentioned earlier, I prefer to play Final Fantasy XIV with Zack. I just think it's a more fun experience. And so for those of you who are unfamiliar, when you play dungeons in this game, at least in the earlier couple of expansions, you have to go through the dungeons with actual players, not NPCs. So every dungeon, you wind up being connected with a couple of random people, and you run the dungeon together. And so, Zack's playing the healer. I'm just a melee. I'm a ninja.
DPS.
Yeah. And then, there's tank. And there's like a mage.
Yeah, well, yeah, I could go into like how they try and assemble the parties, but basically there's one other DPS and a tank with us. And so,
Zack a couple times, he had read things wrong.
I effed up.
And he wasn't healing correctly. And, rather than, I'm new to this game, and I'm also of the corners of the internet or the corners of competitive and online multiplayer gaming where people get angry. And so I'm expecting people to get angry, and I'm expecting, because there's a chat log, and so I'm expecting, someone to like cuss Zack out or just be like, hey, moron, why aren't you keeping us alive? But, you know, Zack's apologetic, and the guy's just like, oh, no, it's no problem. You know, I pull you the tank's like, oh, no, I pulled in too many enemies at once. You know, it was me, you know, and just kind of surprised by the civility.
Well, you know, so one of my pastimes is I like reading old video game magazines. Mm-hmm. So anyone who is currently online knows there's the site GameIndustry.biz. I guess the precursor to it would have been considered Next Generation magazine, which would talk about more industry-based things relating to gaming. And so I was reading a copy that was from 95 or 97, something like that. And it was right at the beginning of Ultima Online. And man, it was fascinating reading someone talking about Ultima and that kind of, you know, persistent online world before it had truly rooted. I believe Warcraft was already going at that point, but this guy was talking about all of his desires for what he wanted to see. I don't know a lot about Ultima personally, but it was fascinating reading what he was talking about, because I know that later of those types of games started to really manifest these ideas. And, you know, the online communities that exist now where, I mean, it's almost not contrary to the goal of what the games are, but like think about people who've gotten married in World of Warcraft. Or I have a friend, he met his girlfriend, sight unseen, they met each other through online gaming.
Yeah.
And that's how they ended up getting together. And so it's like you can have the opposite of the angry, ranting, competitive scene where you have like the oddly interconnected, even falling in love crowd through online gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Since we brought up Ultima Online, I feel I'm obligated to. Are you familiar with the famous incident in Ultima Online?
Mm-mm.
So obviously it's an online MMO from the pre World of Warcraft era, and there was this. There's like a self-insert character in the Ultima games named Lord British, who is supposed to be Richard Garriott, the creator of Ultima.
Yep, that's the interview I read. Good.
And there is in Ultima Online, there was this event in which Lord British appeared in game, and somebody managed to grief him by killing Lord British with a fireball in the middle of this event. And it's just like, I don't know, like that kind of thing would not fly in like modern online games, but there weren't those guardrails there. And somebody's just like, you know what, I wonder if I can do this. and just iced the creator of the series in game.
That is so funny. Well, it's ironic because he talked about in that interview something about like, I'm looking forward to the ways in which people will try to kill Lord British. And then he was saying something about how, like, he was talking about the systems in the world, and he was just like, well, anything we would add would have to be thematic. Well, getting a fireball in that world, I guess, is a thematic death, so he should have been pleased.
Yeah.
I respect people who take their competition very seriously online, but I do want to win. You know, I do have a competitive side, but like I remember one time we were in college, I was in college, and it's probably like maybe a year after I had graduated high school, and one of my friends, he invited me over to his house, and we were just hanging out, and we were playing Smash, and I'm Link, I think he was Ike, it was Brawl, was the Smash at the time, and you know, if he ever hears this episode, Michael, I'm not trying to drag you, but he was like talking tiers, you know, and he was like, oh, you know, Link is pretty low tier and all this other stuff, because he had a roommate who was actually competitive, I believe, and so Michael got competitive. And I really just wanted to tell Michael so much, yeah, that's cool, man, I don't give a shit. Like, I didn't want to be mean to him, you know, and I was just like, yeah, I get it, Michael, you know, it's fine, I don't really care about tiers, you know, it's cool. But, you know, I really am not that type of competitive player. Even if I, like, took myself to a competition, I would probably not be doing research. You know, like the people in Mario Kart who are like, oh, it's got to be Waluigi with Wiggler with these tires and this kite or glider. I don't care. I really don't. I really just am more about choosing the character that appeals to me, no matter what the game is. I'm just playing that way.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm atypical or not, but like I am similar in terms of like I'm not really interested in researching. I remember I had a student And man, this is when I don't even think we had been out yet, or it might have just barely been out, but we ended up bringing a GameCube into the classroom. It was lunch break, and I was the tutor for this program at my old high school, and I was already in college. So this high school kid that I'm tutoring kept talking about how he was really good at Melee. The whole thing about this character's better, that character's better. So my main is Link, and man, I can do stuff with the bombs and the boomerangs and everything. So I just obliterated him, and I remember him being super shocked that I did what I did with Link. Even with Call of Duty, it's similar where, like, I know people now who it's like they'll buy these attachments for their controllers that I have a buddy, like, he said he has his movement settings. It's like the fastest response time you can do. And man, there are exceptions. I will tweak certain controls in games, but for the most part, it's just like, turn off aim assist, let me go. And I will compete that way. I had more fun that way as opposed to trying to, like, break it down scientifically, but that's just me.
Yeah, that reminds me of Zack and I went to an esports arena opened in Oakland probably like 3 years ago, I guess. And we went for the opening weekend. And we went the day that it opened. I had never been to a place like this. I didn't understand how it worked. I did not understand it was bring your own controller. So there's all these people playing mainly Melee on the main part of the floor, but off to the side there were people playing, what was it at the time? I guess it was Brawl? Not really sure. Maybe it was Ultimate.
It would have been...
Oh, it would have been 4. 4, that's right, yeah. So it was 4 at the time. And, just walked in and I see these people playing, and what was actually going on was that it was a couple guys who had brought their own controllers, but probably other people like myself didn't understand that they were using these guys as controllers to play, but these guys were nice. They were just like, yeah, whatever.
Actually, that is mine.
Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the guys, he beat someone, and so that person walked away. And so I said, can I join? And he said, yeah. And so I went to go pick up one of the controllers, and he was like, actually don't use that one because that's my friend's special controller, and he has it modded to whatever settings. I was like, in my head, I'm just like, whatever, dude. Okay, I don't care. So I just grabbed whatever controller. Again, I was Link, and he was whoever. I beat him. We played a couple rounds. I beat him both times. I think there were 3 guys altogether because his friend came back, the one with the special modded controller. So the guy I was playing switches out with the friend. And I can hear them talking with another one of their friends saying, they were talking about me, and they were watching me play. And each one of these guys, I'm just taking them out, and they're talking to each other. And there was like a big mystery, like, where'd she come from? Who is she? And and this one guy was like, yeah, man. One of the guys was like, she already beat me and so-and-so. And we've already played like a couple rounds. And I finally just had enough. I played all 3 of them, and I was like, okay, thanks. And man, they seemed really sour. They were not very nice. I mean, like I said, I got to give them credit because they were just letting people play with their controllers. But
you strip somebody of their manhood. You got to give them a chance to win it back.
It just didn't really seem very friendly.
I've never really gotten to play Smash competitively outside of maybe some online matches, and that in my brain, it just doesn't count, because you have the variability of your connection and just Nintendo's general crappy netcoding. And again, referencing the lovable Iwata. One thing he talked about also in the book was, it's funny because if you read the book, Iwata's Japanese, from Japan. This was not written with sensitive Americans in mind. And it's not like he says anything controversial, but he does kind of reference things that some people say, maybe he's stereotyping or pigeonholing people. But one thing he said Nintendo's worried about is basically the angry mother and how she perceives games as a waste of time, that they are a bad thing. Apparently, Iwata wanted to make it so that the Wii would just shut itself off after a certain point. And that, the parent could hit this toggle and it would die and the kid just wouldn't be able to play anymore. But anyway, one thing he said he had thought about a lot was multiplayer gaming and figuring out how to create an environment that's more inclusive, that is less competitive, basically. And I have to do some research because I can't remember if Iwata was alive or not when Splatoon came out, but Splatoon totally feels like something that is the result of that thinking.
What about it?
So Splatoon's interesting because you can go hardcore competitive crazy. Like my friend Nick started playing Splatoon with me. He loves going off to kill people. I'm the opposite with Splatoon, where all I care about is painting the floor and the walls. And that's what made Splatoon unique when it came out, was it was like, so it has this shooting element to it, but you're not shooting guns with bullets, you're spraying ink everywhere.
So you take more of like a support role when you're playing? Like
I guess that's what I do, because I don't really get many kills when I play that. And so, yes, you're competing, but it's not that same level of like aggressive, me versus this person. Like, you can take it there if you want, but for the most part, Splatoon, you really kind of have your say. Like, I'm going to be on the edges, painting in, avoiding all you idiots. And then there's the Nicks who are like, I'm going to be destroying you idiots. I don't really care as much about painting. And that was kind of a fun experience. I remember when that E3 happened, Nintendo had the big Splatoon area. That was a real surprise for everybody, and it was incredibly fun. And so, like we had talked earlier, like I'm not as big on the multiplayer, like co-op experience.
Yeah.
But Splatoon was kind of an inch in that direction for me. And then my friend Nick, so this man loves board games. Any type of board game you can think of. Not Monopoly. I'm talking about, the hardcore nerd stuff.
Carcassonne and Settlers of Catan.
So Dice Throne is amazing, and we will all play that at some point. What's another one Nick is obsessed with? He's going to be mad because I'm forgetting the name. It's a card game where you have like clear sleeves and you slip pieces of cards with different abilities in. Anyway, Nick loves to play with people, though, when it comes to video games. So he'll compete with me and beat me at Dice Throne constantly. But if we're going to play a game together online, he doesn't want to compete. He wants to play stuff together. So because of him, I've experienced different games. And it is an interesting experience when you are playing together. So For the King is on Switch. I believe it's also a Steam game. For the King is super fun. It has board game mechanics built in, so there's elements of chance with like your roll for movement, your roll for attacking. Everything's roll-based, even though you're not looking at dice. But we've played that together multiple times. I remember we got like within a few hit points of killing the boss and died, which is very annoying. But playing with another person's really an interesting, different experience. We did Minecraft Dungeons, which Angie and Zack frown upon. They think it looks like garbage. I think it's really fun. But
it's not even real Minecraft, right? Minecraft Dungeons, what is this?
It's Diablo craft, thank you, with no crafting. But, there's that other element, right? So you have competition, which is what we've been talking about, but then being together and playing, I think I definitely like the competitive part more, but I see the value in it, the fun to be had playing with other people. Like when Destiny came out, I had it on my PS3. And it was not the optimal Destiny experience, but I had so much fun playing that game, and you're not really competing with anybody. Like, you're more focused on, like, if you go kill some giant boss or whatever. And that was a game where I was playing that for a few months, where it was just every night I'd log in and be, going on these, I don't know what they call them. I'm forgetting the terminology, like a raid, basically, and taking on some enormous boss. And it's kind of fun when you team up that way. I guess I wish I could find the game that maybe would be the outlet for that for me. But I also think that I tend to have trouble with routine in some ways. So I think it's a little easier for me to do something competitive versus cooperative, because then people are depending on me to shell up.
Yeah,
and it's like,
that's actually been a factor in like how I've approached Final Fantasy XIV. Because a lot of the more casual content, obviously a lot of the content in the game is co-op by design, but the more casual content, like going into dungeons, for example, there's this little bit of the interface called the Duty Finder. You go into Duty Finder, you select the dungeon or whatever you want to play, and the game will automatically pair you up with other people who are doing that. You all say hi, go through the content, say thanks, good game, or thank you for the party or whatever, and that's it. But the more high-end stuff in the game, which is say the harder stuff, the more challenging stuff, which could be more rewarding, at the very high end, it's all based around what they call statics, which is like a stable group of people that you regularly meet up with at certain nights of the week or whatever. And I've never been able to, or even interested in doing that. I've never been like, I want to spend like 3 hours every Thursday doing this thing, My friend Nick and his girlfriend, Christina, they're totally into that. Raids, and Nick will tell me, I can't hang out tonight because we're doing raids. And again,
people they've never even met in real life. Some of these are just people they've met in the online community, and that's their thing. And that's where I am not.
And I know enough about the game to know that it could be like really fulfilling to like really push my knowledge of like the job I'm playing as and learn the fights better, to like execute with a group. And then when you succeed in that context, it feels really great. But it's just too much to ask. Like that routine, the idea of like being this like group of people feeling guilty for not being able to make a particular night of play. It's something I've never been willing to
I'm reminded
do.
of a recent quote from our dad, me and Robert. Can't remember exactly what he was talking about, but he said something like, "I don't want these people as my friends." And that's basically how I've lived my life.
Or, Jerry Seinfeld. I really just have 3 friends.
Yeah, that's it. I don't have room for more.
Well, it's interesting because like when Animal Crossing came out when the pandemic began, I mean, that was like the ultimate example of fortuitous timing for Nintendo, right? Like, ignoring the horrors of the pandemic. I'm not taking that lightly, but hey, here's this game that is about communing and you're all stuck at home. Have at it. And one element of it that was funny to me is like, people would want to like hook up and play, right? And it's like, oh, okay, but it was some people who normally don't play these games who were logging in and playing for the first time. And it is interesting because it's like, can we all just get on at 3 a.m. when I'm up? And it's like, oh, no, never mind. Oh, 8 p.m. All right, whatever that is.
Whatever that is.
Or, I'd be like, oh, it's past 9, your shop's closed. Oh, I'm not really interested anymore.
You're dead to me.
Yeah. They're like, oh, I really wanted to shop at both of your shops. Maybe some other time.
Well, I will say that like this is going back to something Robert said earlier, but like at a distance, I would never want to really engage with this directly myself, but there is something I find not admirable, but not even just like, I don't just mean like anthropologically interesting, but something kind of interesting about these the kind of like crucible-like environment of like online play where people are kind of like nasty and competitive with each other. And it's not something I really want to engage with myself, but I think about, like people like busting each other's balls or cursing each other out. And obviously that is going to be something that is not welcoming for everybody, but I do think it is a good match for certain personality types, and I think it's good that kind of thing exists as like options in like the wider space of games.
I sometimes just go onto YouTube and search for old recordings of lobby arguments in Call of Duty because they're comedic gold, and I just think it's so funny reading the comments from people and them sharing their anecdotal stories. And one that really made me laugh, it wasn't even anything very, very major, but this guy said that it was a guy responding to someone who said sometimes you could just breathe into your mic wrong, or just breathe into your mic and you were audible, and that would just trigger somebody or everybody in the lobby to just turn on you. And this one guy said,
"Yo, man, is there something wrong with you? You got a breathing issue?"
Yeah. And then this one guy said that there was I think an Irish guy who was in the lobby, and he said something like, "Man, Americans are something else," and that was it. It was over. He became the target for forever. It's just funny, the way that
it's like a microcosm of Twitter almost. like somebody does something which can draw comments, and all of a sudden everybody just like zoom, like.
Well, it's funny because all these people that were saying, like this is like the Call of Duty lobbies were where boys went to become men, or people that were just saying like today's kids they could never deal with.
Well, it's interesting.
Lobbies.
It's interesting because Zach's mentioning Twitter. I do think it's sort of like Nintendo DS, right? I mean, there had been like Palm Pilot, with the touchscreen, whatever, but Nintendo DS kind of led the way with that bit of technology with the touchscreen, and then suddenly it's what we're all using for our phones. But if you think of like online communication and connectivity, a big part of that's the roots are in gaming. I mean, people were like communicating with email, but like the idea of these like online personas and almost like I'm going online to let out aggression, or I'm going online like almost in a therapeutic way to not be me and just enjoy the anonymity of being online. We have strayed from that, if you think about it. I mean, you could go into a Call of Duty lobby and say the most horrendous evil thing to somebody, and yes, there are some people who are triggered by it or it hurts their feelings, whatever. But I think I'm tempted to say for most people who go online and were in that environment in 2007, that for some it was the Crucible. It was, you ball up and you learn how to deal with it and you play. Now we're in this position where it's the similar thing on Twitter, but now it's like, oh, so you said this horrible thing? Mm-hmm. Well, now we have to hold you accountable. Does that represent who you are as a person? It's like, yes, numbnuts38, his username. Yes, this is what he really means, and we're going to hold him accountable, figure out where he lives, and burn his house down. Like,
he can never get another job again.
Yeah, it's just fascinating because that overlap. I was in a class and we were talking about the ethics of being in like an Ultima or Warcraft type of game. Mm-hmm. And the idea of like, so what if, let's say you're in first person view in the game and an online avatar in the game walks right up to your character and is face to face with it not moving. Well, in real life, it'd be like, what the hell is wrong with you? Get out of my face. But in a game, we perceive it differently. It's like, it's a game. It's not the same thing.
There's more distance.
Yeah.
But then there becomes the question of, well, if you're in the game and it's an extension of you and you're treating this like it is a world you're in, maybe there should be some kind of social boundaries with you can and can't do this in this digital world.
It's funny because, Zack and I were playing Final Fantasy XIV the other night, and we were in a particular place, and you'll often come across players in the same places as you. You have to go from one part of the land to another. And if they're playing, they're in the same point of the game and the story that you are, you might see someone repeatedly in a night.
Yep.
And so we were in a place, and Zack's a bard, and there was a guy who was a much lower level bard. And for some reason, I don't know what it was about. I assumed it might have been Zack because he was a fellow bard. But all of a sudden, this guy starts following us. And, I'm doing my thing. I'm talking to the NPC to trigger the further story. And Zack's just kind of waiting for me to be ready to move on. And this guy just kind of follows us into this room. And he's just kind of like staring. And like his character is just kind of staring. And he's kind of like wandering around Zack. And then kind of walking around me. And then we walk out. And he walks out with us. And yeah, in real life, you would be like, is there a problem? But in the game, I was just laughing because I was like, what a weirdo. Especially because we all look weird. Some of us are wearing stupid leveling gear, and he was in dumb leveling gear. And so it was like, he looks kind of comical dressed as this kind of Peter Pan-ish.
Yeah, he was he was
following us.
He must have been at least level 45 because he was wearing the specific dumb gear that bards wear. Starting level 45, it's the coral set, and they have like tights.
Yeah.
Which looks stupid. Like,
this is not a personal attack against him. It's like, all the bards got to go through it.
Even on female characters, these tights look stupid. They look stupid across the board because part of their design is that they have different patterns and different colors on the two legs.
Like a jester.
Like a jester, a total clown. So, like, I had noticed this guy. I knew he had, like, we'd crossed his path a couple times because I saw, I was like, oh, God, those pants. I remember those pants.
But yeah, it was interesting. And Zack and I have also talked about, there are some people in this community of this game who enjoy kind of more erotic roleplay stuff.
ERP.
Yeah.
There are some servers in the game that are famous for it.
Oh, God, a bunch of derp.
And so we were talking about how, because I was like, I don't want to be playing this game. Because one time, just once, came across something weird involving a Lalafell and a giant. And anyway, so I was just like,
Lalafells are sentient Cupid dolls in the world of Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah, I hate them.
I'm scared.
I hate them. Anyway.
I don't even want to know what's happening.
Yeah, and so I saw something happening, and I was like, look, I really don't want to play this if this is I'm just going to constantly be running into this. And Zack was like, no, what they were doing is technically not, like, kosher, like they should be on the other...
They brought the orgy out of the hotel room.
Yeah, exactly. They took it out of the Love Hotel.
It's not supposed to be in the McDonald's eating area.
Yes, sir, this is a Wendy's.
Baby, we just got to get out of the Limsa Etherite Plaza.
Yeah,
and then we'll be fine.
That's what he told me. He's like, just don't go here. We should be fine. I was like, okay. But yeah, again, the things that you could get away with, you can get away with in the game that you cannot get away with in real life.
I did have an experience in the game. So I play as a female character. And part of the reason I wanted to do that was actually like curiosity about, because I'd heard people talk about like what it was like to play a game as a woman, right? So I just kind of wanted to see firsthand like what this was like. Very little has happened, but there was like one incident when I was around, I want to say level 15, when I got essentially catcalled by somebody. And I was like, all right, whatever.
Howdy, sailor.
And like it's like at that point in the leveling progression, like as a lancer, like as a dragoon, my I did kind of have this. Well, there was a lot of skin showing. Let me say that particular phase of the leveling gear involved a lot of skin. But then later, I remember there was in a dungeon. I did report him to the moderators in game. What basically like when you run a dungeon in the game, you have to run it with a group of 4 people. Like Angela mentioned, you have a tank, a healer, and 2 DPS, 2 damage dealers. I was one of the DPS. This guy was the tank. And one of our players like had to go or drop out or come back. For whatever reason, we were like waiting until we had a full party again before we could proceed further. And so like while I was waiting, I had just done like a crouch emote just to like kind of like signal, just waiting around, right? And the tank had positioned himself, like moved his character to be like right in front of my character. And I don't know what emote he was doing, but it involved like kind of like a hip thrust action.
So like getting teabagged in Halo.
Yeah.
Right. So like he's miming getting blown. And I'm like, no, thank you. So I stand up and go like to crouch somewhere else. So he follows me and again stands in front of me and does that emote. So I was like, okay, no.
Yeah.
I don't know how to report another player, but I'm gonna figure it out.
You see, I play as a male character, so I don't have these. At least I've not yet I have not had anyone think that the man that I play as is so incredibly attractive. I'm gonna get hit on.
It's funny how there are limitations placed in games, and people find ways to do things that they shouldn't be. I mean, look at Miiverse, right? I think Nintendo, like, probably in Japan it launched and everything was cool, and then 5 minutes later in America there were 10,000 penis drawings.
Yeah.
So anyway, obviously that was not the goal of, I'm saying it right, it was Miiverse. That was the Nintendo social network.
Yeah.
I remember in Mario Kart 8 playing online, and Mario Kart 8 has this weird feature where you can have little blurbs of text appear on the screen. They're like these preset messages that you can use.
Or like, I'm using tilt controls.
Yes, and so you get sometimes the annoying asshole player who's like, they pretend to be naive, like, go easy on me.
Yeah.
But then you'll get someone who's just straight being annoying. Like, they'll just repeatedly saying like, hello, or whatever. So I figured out the only way to be negative, because Nintendo wants you to be positive, right? The only negative phrase I could get my hands on was goodbye. And so this person kept being annoying, and I just kept repeating goodbye. And they finally figured out that I was mocking them. And I remember the last thing they said before the match started was, I think one of the options, it wasn't like, I'm going to get you, but it was something like, I'm going to win the next match.
I'll get you next time.
That's what he said. He says how he ended it. I'll get you next time. Oh, it was so funny. I was like, yeah, there we go. Take that, Nintendo. But I'm not dismissing anyone who's had horrible experiences online. I know people have been stalked, all of that, but...
swatted.
Yes. But just in terms of kind of, again, that idea of the crucible, there's this idea about modern technology and how everything is arguably becoming too tailored to the individual, to the point that you're almost living in a bubble. And if your individual quirks aren't all being satisfied by various algorithms on your phone, that you're offended now, or you're upset, or you feel uncomfortable. In gaming, now I think gaming's driving more towards wanting to give you that extra safe space. But if you think about going into a lobby of Call of Duty in 2007 or 8 or whatever, and just that kind of Wild West that it was, it's almost lamentable that it's going away, just in that life is not always nice. People are not always nice, and not everybody's going to like you.
Yep.
And I think part of just dealing with life and society isn't how do we make everything as friendly and nice as possible. It's how do you cope with the fact that I think you're ugly and I don't like you?
I feel like people used to see, maybe I'm off base with this, but I feel like people used to see the internet more as like this other space, almost like this other dimension that they had a window into, right? And now, like, partly because everyone's carrying their phone around all the time, and they're like have these like social experiences like stapled to their phone, and they're stapled to their phone. That it's almost like whatever's on the phone is in the living room with you, like it's there as part of your own living space. And so anything unpleasant that happens on the internet, if you're seeing it on Instagram or Twitter on your phone, is actually like they feel like it's infringing on their own
It's
space.
happening to me.
Yes, so instead of a view into another world, it is the world. It's like AR.
Yeah.
It's augmented onto your world now. And like gaming I think at least still to an extent feels separate because you're doing fantastical things more often than not. Like if I'm playing Rocket League, I'm not going to get in my car and smash a giant soccer ball with it, right?
Hopefully.
I mean, I am Mexican. Who knows what could happen? But, it's fascinating how we're taking that kind of digital world and extrapolating it onto our own, and you almost don't even have a say in it to an extent. I don't know. It's, this is straying out beyond gaming, but it is tricky, the world that we exist in with all this digital technology and how, it's shaping. I think Winston Churchill, if I'm right, said something about how we build buildings and then the buildings shape us, or like we shape the buildings and then the buildings shape the people that go into them. And like the digital world, we're molding it, but then it in turn is molding us.
Yeah.
It's a little scary. My buddy Brian was talking about Mortal Kombat 2, and he alleged, I have to research this, but he alleged that Mortal Kombat 2 is considered the hardest game in the series because the AI is designed to be like brutally hard. And so like after one match, it is instantly figuring you out and does not want you to win. And I think by like the fourth or fifth match, it is just on you. And you're lucky if you're smart enough to get past it. And it's almost like we're being outsmarted by our own algorithms and stuff where everyone's trying to figure out how to get you to do this and do that. And people who are not necessarily qualified to figure out how to, trigger your, what's the pleasure?
Serotonin.
Your serotonin, They talk about like things like an email. Even something as simple as an email on your phone. I sent an email. Well, I'm rewarded because I get the indicator that tells me you got to reply to your email. And you actually get a little bit of a rush from getting your email. And, some tech nerd figured that out. Is he necessarily a psychologist? No, but we have these people who know how to manipulate on that level. I mean, look at loot boxes, right? I mean, you have this interesting thing factored in of not only am I playing competitively, now I'm also concerned about this thing that is basically gambling, and that has its own triggers, and we're going to mesh those things together where you not only want to win, but we're going to make sure that you're so desperate to win, you'll spend a bunch of money on a loot box and that it'll screw with your brain to get you to get that serotonin release.
It's crazy the degree to which, like, this isn't only about this kind of like loot box serotonin manipulation kind of stuff or dopamine manipulation kind of stuff. And this is my own experience with Final Fantasy XIV was big here, was realizing that I needed to learn not just how to play the game, but how to not play the game or how to set my own boundaries for how to play it. It's because as games are changing, the habits that I built when I was a kid about what it meant to finish a game, what it meant to beat a game, how to like approach a game, when to walk away from it. Like all these new mechanics that were being added to the game, all these new techniques for like pulling me back required this like ongoing process of like recalibration or like learning myself and learning where the game has really not got my best interests at heart.
Yeah, Iwata, he talked about with Earthbound, that was the origin. I think this was making the rounds on the internet recently, but Earthbound was the origin of Nintendo telling you, you've been playing a while, maybe it's time to take a break. Because in Earthbound, if you play for a certain amount of time without stopping, you'll get a call from your father in the game, and he'll tell you, it's time for a break.
I remember being annoyed by that, because I was playing Earthbound on an emulator. Not necessarily an illicit emulator, it could have been
Yeah, the eShop version.
Right. Could have been
course.
Virtual Console, but like you just like save state, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the game doesn't know that you haven't stopped playing, so it's like Dad, shut up! I just started for the day.
Yeah, well, it's kind of sad because Nintendo's straying away from the Iwata era ethics, right? Like you have the ridiculousness of Mario Kart Tour, where you spend $40 to get a character, and you're not even guaranteed to get the character. You're guaranteed a shot to get the character. Like, that's awful, but yeah, it is a pretty fascinating thing what is happening with online gaming, with just multiplayer in general. I mean, as a kid, I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know what I was reading in half of the things I was looking at as a child. So, like, I didn't realize that in old magazines, you would see advertisements for, like, X-Band, I think is what it was called.
Yeah.
And you could play your Super Nintendo with other people online. In fact, I kind of wonder if the architecture for, because I have not tried it yet, where you can actually play Super Mario Kart online with somebody if you have Nintendo Switch Online. I wonder if that architecture was built in all the way back then and they're just exploiting it now. Because if I could play X-Band playing Mario Kart online, you got to figure it's easy to do now, right? But, the evolution of it is pretty fascinating. We're sitting here talking about it in real time, and I'm just kind of thinking of all the evolution we've been witness to, as far back as, you were the power nerd who had an X-Band and you could play your buddy across the country, or
I have to wonder how well that worked, because like netcode is even an issue for modern games, right? So like,
and you're on dial-up.
How good could that have been, right?
Man. Oh man, it's at 5 frames per second, bro. It's really flowing right now.
Like it's the delay, right? It's the ping between you and the server, and then between them and the server. It's like, how does that get resolved? Anyhow, I don't know how much more you guys want to go, or if there's any like other anecdotes you really want to make sure you hit.
No,
I've got about
for me, like the one other thing I do want to mention is Dark Souls, or the Souls games, which are famous for their kind of strange implementation of multiplayer, where the games are mostly single player, but can be multiplayer kind of like against the player's will. Like you can get invaded by other players. You can also play co-op, but you also you just be going through what is otherwise a single player game, and then you get a message that somebody's invaded you, and you're like, oh God. And you can also play these games offline, of course, because you can just tell your PlayStation or whatever to just act like it's not connected to the internet. And that is mostly how I play the Dark Souls games. I do remember when the first Dark Souls came out, I wasn't doing that. I was like, all right, I'm going to, I spent most of the time I was playing Demon Souls. I played that offline because there's just other mechanics and reasons. Manipulating world tendency. Don't have to worry about what that means. But basically there's certain content that depends on certain states of the game. And when you play online, it can interfere with that. When Dark Souls came out, I was like, well, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to stay connected to the internet. Let's just see what happens, right? And first level, I get invaded by somebody who is immensely more powerful than me. The Dark Souls games have always had problems with like balancing strengths of invaders. And in the first Dark Souls games, the way they did this was like based on your character's level. But the problem is in Dark Souls, you can stay low level, get really late in the game, get really strong gear, and still be matched for invasions or multiplayer with people who are just starting out. So I got invaded once. This guy has like the Dark Hand, which is the shield that requires getting way deep into the game to get. He can like suck out your souls, and then he like kicks me off a ledge and I'm dead. And I'm like, well, my fault for trying to engage with the system, I guess.
It's interesting. Nintendo kind of adopted, because like Dark Souls isn't that the game where people would leave messages about?
The messages are great. Yeah.
So Nintendo, of course, had their own probably tamer version of it, but they did that with New Super Mario Bros. Where I think it was the Wii U version, because that's where Miiverse was, but I believe that was the game where like you would be shown where people died occasionally, or maybe I'm thinking of Mario Maker. I might be thinking of Mario Maker, but one of those games shows you, hey, a bunch of people died right at this spot, which is kind of along those lines, because it's almost like a heads up, like, hey, you're going to get killed right here.
That stuff is great in Dark Souls. I do love that. I also love the messages that can be helpful or not, right? Sometimes it'll be like, try jumping, and then you try jumping, and then you just die because like it was just a troll message in front of a pit.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, there is something that we can't not talk about when it comes to multiplayer, especially in the online world, which is the various excuses that have existed across time for why you lost. Lag, that's the number one, right? It was lag.
Yeah.
The lag switch was a very common colloquial phrase during the Call of Duty heyday. That dude has a lag switch. No one knows what the lag switch is, but it's the thing he can flip to make your connection crappy, but his is good. And he's basically Neo in the Matrix, dodging your bullets and then shooting you. The controller, that's always an issue.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Like,
you just go straight to accusing other people of cheating, right?
Cheating.
Or that's cheap, man.
Yeah, cheap, yeah.
Oh, man. It's funny because sometimes you are legitimately really good at a game.
Yeah.
And you're not cheating, but you're so damn good that you convince people you're cheating, and that could be problematic online. I think we might have talked about this back, but this is kind of related. Third-party controllers, and how if you have certain people who break things, they might get the crappy third-party controller while everybody else uses the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Yeah, in some cases, the third-party controllers are advantageous. I remember having an ASCII pad on the Super Nintendo that had like turbo buttons built in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like third-party controllers have an ongoing reputation as like the thing you give your cousin when they come over, right?
You have this one. Don't worry if it works or not. Oh, man. But yeah, the joys of multiplayer gaming.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I'll wrap us up for this week. So you have been listening to the 7 Minutes Podcast, episode 9, and we'll do it again next time. So thank you from me, from Angela, from Zack, and we are signing off.